Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Combelusier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar features Angold Resources, a gold explorer targeting large-scale mineral systems. The company holds a 100% interest in 4 projects across the Americas in prolific mining districts like Nevada and the Maricango Gold Belt in Chile. Today I have with me on the webinar Adrian Rothwell, President, CEO, and Director at Angold Resources. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of 2 parts. In the first part, Adrian will provide an update on Angold, including an overview of the company and its flagship projects, Dorado, located in Chile, and Butte, located in Nevada. Both of those are in prolific mineral trends, including the Maricango Belt and the Battle Mountain Trend. Those districts are known for hosting over 10 million ounce gold deposits. I'm sure we'll also get an update on the current exploration work being completed and that in the works for its projects. In the second part, we'll take your questions live, so please send your questions in using the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. And I'll note you can type them in at any point throughout the presentation. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then I'll turn it over to Adrian. So for Angold Resources, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Angold Resources corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Angold-specific disclosures. So with that, I'll turn it over to Adrian to update you on Angold Resources and what you have to look forward to with the company.
Thanks, Taylor. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this webinar, and happy to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So as Taylor had mentioned, there will be some forward-looking statements. I won't go over this, and we also have some sources for some of the data in our presentation here. So Angold, we listed in January, December 31 last year, and so we've been trading now for around about 9 months. Has not been a great market, but markets aside, we've had some fantastic response success on our projects. So what are we doing? We have a portfolio of projects and we're targeted on growing these each into multi-million ounce deposits. So in this presentation, I'm going to change it around a bit. Normally we talk about Chile. That has been the focus of the company in the first half of 2021. And in fact, we did a 4,300 meter drill program over 9 holes in the first half of the year. But today, I think what we're going to do is swap this to a discussion on our Butte, Nevada project first, and we'll move into Chile after that. And the reason for that is we're currently out at Butte doing our pre-drill program, and we're looking at putting some drills on the ground on that project as soon as the weather allows us to do so. So Butte, we have a historic resource of about 600,000 ounces. Grade is about 0.62 grams per ton, and about half of that is in oxides. However, we see some of the highlight holes much higher grade, and we'll go into what our thinking is around that later. Dorado is our other project that we drilled, as I previously mentioned. Again, we have an historic resource on that, and through our drilling, we've expanded this around 100 meters in all directions, including at depth. And it's open along most of those directions too, so warrants further drilling. In Cordera, you'll see our last news release, or 2 news releases ago, I should say, where we have released our surface testing, geocam, and geophysics on that project. So we'll touch on that just a little bit in this presentation. First of all, Iron Butte. So Iron Butte is located near Battle Mountain. It is a low sulfidation epithermal deposit. I wouldn't say it's in the Battle Mountain Trend, which sits a little to the east of us, but it's certainly in that region of the world where we're seeing some of the largest gold deposits in the world. So again, about 60 km south of Battle Mountain. It's around 1,500 hectares. It's quite a good land package for this part of the world. We're actually on the rim of the Cateno Caldera. We see the Battle Mountain Trend in blue here, going through the eastern side of this caldera. And on that rim, we also have some extremely large gold deposits like Cortez Hill. But again, it's a low sulfidation deposit. And this here is a little bit of a cartoon on what the ideal low sulfidation epithermal system would look like. And to give you an idea of where we are at in this system, it's intact and uneroded. We're seeing the opaline silicas and chalcedony at surface. And really what's been drilled in the past on this project has been the hydrothermally active fissures close to that surface. And really that permeable disseminated ore at depth has never been tested. And we're getting some quite good results from our geophysics program that I've included in this presentation for today. So really good picture here. This is bladed quartz showing the boiling textures and shows boiling in the epithermal system, which for us is a good thing. It's a symptom of gold deposition. And the silica textures within the Iron Butte system, there's two zones, the North Zone and the Red Ridge Zone, are the higher grade is associated with this silica quartz. So our target will be for looking at the silica bodies, at that 300 to 600 meters below the surface, but which do represent themselves at surface, as I previously mentioned, in the veins of Red Ridge and North Zone. Historically, the drilling at Iron Butte has only been about 150 to 250 meters in depth, and not a very systematic drill program at that. It's been all RC, and you've got your vertical holes. And this shows some of those holes historically. So good long intercepts, good grades, but we believe that the higher grade zones have been missed. And in this diagram, some of the blue was some of our initial drill targeting. That will change, although the pads themselves will not, just depths and depths of those drill holes. But we believe that those quartz textures are located between the North Zone here and the Red Ridge Zone here, and a lot of them were missed at depth. So that'll be part of our target. One of the first things we did when we went out onto the property late last year and Q1 of this year was mapping those silica textures and ribs at surface to see where these would intersect at depth, and to give us the higher grade zones. So that was the first step, and we're going through and confirming this with geophysics and the like. So this is a cartoon again, but this is showing where those, the purple here shows where these structural intersections are at depth and why we're targeting those areas. And really that's where the bulk of the hydrothermal activity is where these intersect. And This here is a little cartoon, as well as to, just showing where you get those voids and where we see a lot more gold deposition, and that's been back tested to the Red Ridge zone as well, closer to surface. So what are we doing right now out there? So we've been out there for a little over a month, probably 6 weeks now. First, we did an MT survey. We've had our consultants, environmental consultants and the like out there as well before then, and we're permitted for up to around 10,000 meters of drilling, which is what our objective is for 2022. And then since then, we did some IP and some NT as well. So we did a magnetotelluric survey where the red is here, through the Red Ridge, to look at structures at depth, as well as IP along some of the new ground to the north and along that range front, as well as the north zone, and extending some of the mineralized zones along the range front. So we are open in mineralization to the south of Red Ridge. Red Ridge is around about the center of the red lines there. And so that's so we are testing further south of the current resource, historic resource, I should say. So results are pending for IP. We've also got the MT results being processed right now. We're also reassaying historic pulps and chips. That will save us with having to do a lot of QA/QC drilling, and so we have a lot of that in storage. In addition to that, Ken Coleman, our senior exploration manager in North America, is going to be is out at site. He's prospecting right now, as well as doing a grid soils and a ridge and spur soil sample on some of the steeper ground. So doing that complete geophysical and geocam review of the property. So I included this because this is part of the really early results from our MT survey, but what it's showing us, we've interpreted some of the faults on the left. The steeper fault is where we've interpreted the rangefront fault to be. Typically on the west side of the rangefront fault, that's where a lot of mineralization ends. And then showing underneath the depth of drilling here, where you see the wavy line there is where we've interpreted a little bit of the boundary between the upper plate, where current drilling has been focused in some of the fissure-controlled host rock, to the lower plate, where the high resistivity result, which we will confirm with IP as well, and our targets will be the coincident high resistivity, high conductivity areas. This is showing some silica zones below, where we're thinking this is the source of mineralization above in the upper plate. The upper plate being mainly just that structurally controlled gold deposition. This would be, if you refer back a couple of slides where we looked at that ideal model of the low sulfidation epithermal system, this is where we think the disseminated ore zone will be. So that's going to be part of our testing. Of course, the mineralization of that, we won't know until we drill it. So, and remember, these drill holes are not very deep. So this is really showing the shallowness of the historic drilling. This is only about 150 meters from surface in the center of this zone. So not long drill holes to get below that. had a lot of questions on the size of our land package and the will it fit question, and so just a little illustrative example here of the size of Iron Butte. And in general, in short, I should say the answer is yes, it will. And the main resource area is on the western side of this image, and we see. I see Taylor's joined us here again, but yeah, on the western side, and the Cove McCoy approximates where we're looking at our target grade. And Round Mountain is around where the historic grade is. But note, Round Mountain and that pit is, we're drawing this a little to scale, although it is illustrative. Remember, Round Mountain's 10 million ounces plus. So you'll see the pit is a little larger than the width of our project, but it'll give you a little bit of an idea of the good size of our claim package. So what have we done? We've permitted. We're in our pre-drilling program right now, and we will be looking to fill our boots on that 10,000 meter drill program over the first half of next year, pending results of a smaller phase 1 program. Phase 1 is scheduled to be around 2,850 meters, with the rest in phase 2. Okay, so that's Nevada. That's our focus for the next 6 months. In the background, however, don't want anyone to forget about our 2 Chilean projects where Guillermo and his team have been working very hard over the winter down there, and preparing us for a good summer this year. So first of all, Cordera, and I go there first because our most recent news release had some of the results of our field exploration. Smaller land package than Dorado, for sure, but certainly large enough for us to focus on an area of historic drilling and an alteration at surface, and where geophysics has told us that this trend's undercover. So it's a high sulfidation epithermal system at Cordera. And that has provided some really good high-grade historic drill results that we will be expanding upon in the next drill program, but also the real target undercover of a buried porphyry system. So highlight of some of our results, we tested up to 12 grams per ton at surface from rock chips. Some of the results I like, though, was some trenching that we had done where it tested up to almost 4 grams per ton over a couple of meters. Excuse me. So lots of stuff to talk about, lots of stuff to go back and drill. We just did 9 lines of IP, and we did some MAG reinterpretation. This whole property was covered with a MAG survey about 10 years ago. So we reinterpreted that, and we've done some grid soils over this project to put that into a geological context. In short, historic drilling was very shallow. Again, much the same story as Iron Butte, and we think that a lot of the historic holes were incorrectly placed to test any system at depth. So that's what we're going to do. We have 5 targets and 2 trends. The trends that we see on this project are really the north trend here in gray, the gray ellipse, is more of your high sulfidation system, as is the trend to the south, but trending underneath where we think we have some buried porphyry system as well. There's historic high-grade workings on the project, so it gives us a bit of a leg up for surface testing to see what kind of grades we can expect at depth too. And just a little bit of an insight into some of the work we've been doing. In the top left of this slide, you can see where the mineralization outcrops, and this has really been put in to test where we believe it goes undercover, and that's along that southern ellipse under the cover rock. So, of course, you don't know what you've got until you drill it. So, a little bit of an analogous case here to Caspice. And we'll make sure that this slide, and we have a couple for the Dorado project, makes it into our corporate deck very shortly, so you can have a little look at the similarities yourself. But in a nutshell, it's an intact porphyry target at depth with epithermal gold at surface. So last but not least is Dorado. This is where we focused a lot of the work earlier in the year, and where we will be focusing a larger drill program in the future. So I know there'll be questions as to why we haven't been out there yet. The truth of that is that we had a heavy snow season. We will be going out with graders next week. But we won't be going out to drill it in the near term because we have designed a bigger drill program than originally permitted for, and we are entering this project into the environmental system. That will give us a permit that will last us for around 3 years, and we will have we'll be able to drill both Lajitas and Hacienda South, as well as other targets on this project. Previously, this was drilled earlier this year under what is called a pertenencia in Chile. That's very similar to a notice of intent, which is in the BLM in the US. And that is how we're drilling at Iron Butte. And of course, at Iron Butte, just like in Chile, if we have a successful program for up to 10,000 meters there, we'll be drilling under the next phase, which is an environmental assessment at Iron Butte. And this is in exactly the same boat. So we drilled under a pertenencia, and we'll be now going back and drilling under a more advanced permit. But for us, Dorado, great project. It's got an historic resource, as I mentioned, of around 500,000 ounces. Through our drill campaign in 2021, we've expanded the footprint of that in about 100 meters in all directions. So we are growing that resource, and we also made a discovery at Hacienda South. We believe that this project will have multiple deposits on it, and really it's a district unto itself. This is just really, there's an old slide. It's really just to show the fact that we've only historically, until this year, drilled to around 300 meters, and that was low-hanging fruit for us, to be honest. We drilled down to 647 meters this year, average depth around 500 meters, and remain open as well in many of those holes below the depth of drilling. Oxide cap at Dorado is actually quite thick. It's around, as compared to Caspice, where it's only around 150 meters, we're looking at around a 300 meter depth of our oxide cap, which that's good news, because oxide at these grades and in Chile, that is what you want to be mining in the first phase of mining, at least. It's your money maker. So some highlights of our drilling. Awesome results, and we look forward to more in 2022. I won't I won't labor on this slide. It's just a different representation of where we've drilled and where we extended mineralization, really along that north-northeast, south-southwest fault trend. And again, at depth. Big news on Dorado was really around Lajitas South, and this is an old slide again, and we have improved our understanding of Lajitas South as well as our geophysic mapping. We will be launching a new website in the next 3 weeks or so. You will see a lot more of this on that, with some of the results from the IP survey, MAG, as well as geocam work that we did. But essentially, Lajitas South is looking very much like it is a porphyry center. We have gold at surface, some of the grades shown here, but a disseminated gold body in porphyry, surrounded by where you see magnetite destruction here, an epithermal system on the boundary or the ring around that porphyry center. And this is confirmed through geocam as well as geophysics. So very, very consistent targets. This is great. We just need to now go out and drill it. So give you an idea of locations of some of our targets. We have Lajitas South, about 1 kilometer south of Lajitas. And we have a couple of other targets that are earlier stage and for follow-up next time in the field, Ruby, Ava, and we've also got some targets to the north as well undercover. Again, comparatives, Lajitas, nearest analogy is the Mate deposit, which is around about 15 kilometers to the north of Lajitas, as well as for Lajitas South, very similar to Casale in the ring anomaly, as well as that's a mag anomaly with magnetite destruction around the potassic core of that. So we're very excited. We will see some great response at depth once we drill there. We also have the Uchi property in Ontario. This was our listing property, and again, early stage. So I won't talk about this today, but we do have work planned for next summer on this project, just surface testing. Cap structure. For those of you that are familiar with us and have seen presentations previously, obviously the number of shares it remains unchanged since we listed at around 84 million. Warrants are at 40 cents. They will expire soon. They were just the broker warrants. Other than that, we have no further warrants. But the big change is you'll see our float is now most of our outstanding. So we've seen 1, 2, 3 releases from escrow, and not a lot left in escrow anymore. The balance of this escrow is released over the next 3 years. And on the board, myself, Galen McNamara, Brandon Bonifacio, and Ronnie Zimmerman. Brandon and Ronnie bringing some great Chilean expertise to the company, and Galen as well in the US and Canada. And then our advisors, Craig, Doug, and Michael, have helped us out a lot with things going on in the background. So that's us. So we have, and I should update this, it's really 3 drill-ready advanced exploration gold projects. Although I will say the 2 in Chile, we are planning to go back and complete a little more IP before we do go back and drill. But Nevada, that's what we're working on right now, and that will be drill ready in the coming weeks. We're in the right regions. We're in the Mariconga and Nevada. We've got a tight share structure and a great team. So, and just on team, before I go, we have 2 teams. We've got Ken Coleman is heading up our exploration team in Nevada, and Guillermo Peralta is heading up our team out of Chile. So we're not split focused. Things are running in parallel. I like that. Yeah, we like to be busy. So that's us. So I'll send the room back to Taylor here.
Great. Thanks very much, Adrian. That was a great presentation. So now we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar, and just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type in your questions at any point now. So we do have a few in. First up, just with respect to Lajitas and the, looking forward, I guess, to that bigger drill program that's down the road, would some of that be allocated to testing at depth between Lajitas and Lajitas South and seeing if they're connected?
Yeah, so that is one of our areas of interest. I mean, certainly most of the drilling will be testing those epithermal targets around Lajitas South, as well as the porphyry core. That's a given. And we'll be continuing to expand the resource zone at Lajitas. But yes, we'll be very, very aware that the Lajitas South could be a continuation of the Lajitas deposit. Early days for us to tell that, though, and we won't know without a drill. Right. So yeah, good question. Okay,
great. Okay, and then looking at Cordera for next year with that smaller program, I imagine the permitting is much easier than the kind of that bigger program you mentioned at Dorado. If you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so that would be drilled under the same permit that we had drilled Dorado under this year, I should say, early this year, called the Pertinencia. So yes, we are essentially able to get a permit very quickly for that. And we've had our environmental consultants, and you still do need to do some environmental work, of course. And we've had our environmental and archaeological consultants out there this month.
Great. Okay. And then another question, just wondering about if you have any comments on the political situation in Chile. I know there's been a lot on kind of the producer side that can affect particularly the copper producers with the tax changes there. Are there any impacts on the smaller guys, the explorers, and everything?
Only really reputational. The new tax in Chile is designed to tax the copper producers only, so it doesn't affect gold to start with. But reputationally, certainly it impacts everyone in Chile because it's a strong message. That being said, I think, Chile is a country that is finding its feet from a social perspective. It's quite an incredible story over the last 20 years, but they still have some, and you could argue that this is the case in North America too, but the inequality of that wealth that's been created is an issue in Chile, and this is all part of that. Overall, it isn't the cheapest place in the world to work, but it certainly isn't the most expensive. And it is a country that, although being in, South America, which is typically socialist, it is a Western country. Rule of law prevails, and there is. We look forward to some vigorous debate on these new taxes, even as it relates to just copper companies.
Right. Okay.
Still a good place to invest.
Great. Okay. Turning back to Cordera, is there any other work that you would need to do to kind of tighten up those targets that you mentioned? You mentioned that there were 5 that you've identified so far.
Just some geophysics now. We've done the ground pounding out there. So we had a geophysics survey done on the south east part of the project. I think I would want to see a few more lines of IP, and I will add that is the same work that we would be doing at Dorado as well, at Hacienda South. So on both projects, but that doesn't take a long time. That's about a month of work, and we're good to go.
Great. Okay. Just wondering on the kind of the strategy a little bit with the change to do that bigger program and everything. When you look at the company overall, is there any rush to get to a mineral resource or an updated resource on any of the projects, or have you kind of is it really more about that expanding the exploration knowledge and the potential and building up on that side as opposed to rushing to a resource?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I don't want to say we're in no rush to update the resource because, I think that a lot of shareholders want to see an updated resource, and certainly they want to see a current resource. That being said, I'm on a bit of a mission to get a 1 million ounce resource out of Dorado at least. I think we're a long way from a resource on Cordera. So this is a discussion on Dorado and Iron Butte for that matter. And on both, I can say, I'm looking at a 1 million ounce resource that I would want to release and something that really moves the needle. I don't want to rush to do a resource before we're able to move the needle. We obviously have internal models that we've been working with on both projects to confirm some of the historic results, which we have done. But Iron Butte, we clearly need to drill, and we're expanding at Lajitas, but I really want to get some drills on the ground at Lajitas South before we start updating resources on that front.
Great. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, definitely think you're right with that. Definitely having something that moves the needle is key.
Yeah.
So that's great. Okay. Question here on, I know you didn't really touch on it much in the presentation, but with the Knorrland recently optioning its South Uchi Project to Barrick, has that impacted your strategy at all with your Uchi property that's kind of in the area there?
Not overly. They're quite a bit further south of our project. We are on the northern part of the Uchi Trend and north of the South Bay Mine. So, and it really, really is an early stage project. Now, that being said, it may provide some corporate alternatives for us in the future to get exploration expedited on that project. But I think, as with all of our projects, before I start to consider that, we need to do the work, some of the foundational work ourselves. And, so whether that's Iron Butte, we need to drill that. Cordera, same. Uchi, we need to get out and just complete that initial work that we've been doing on Iron Butte now and on Cordera last summer. So, and that's our plan for next summer. So it also provides us a little bit of an ability to use flow through in a very light way. I mean, the spending on Uchi is order of magnitude less than the other projects.
Right. Okay. Excellent. So then turning, I guess, to the corporate side a little bit, kind of where do you stand in terms of cash balance and what are you funded for kind of going forward right now?
Sure. I mean, You know, we raised 8 million last year. That we have put to good use, and we've stretched that as far as we can with drilling at Dorado, as well as doing all of this early stage work in Nevada and on Cordera and Dorado. I might add that we have some early stage work for targeting other areas. So yeah. I mean, we're going to need to go back to the market for drilling funds, but we have enough cash right now that the funds we raise will be for drilling, and they will be going back into the ground.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay. So we are getting down on questions. So maybe if you could just kind of sum up and provide any final thoughts for investors on the line, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for coming and listening to me. Secondly, yeah, look, we want to move the needle on our projects. We think Iron Butte has fantastic potential, as does Dorado and Cordera. So stay tuned. We will be drilling as soon as we can at Iron Butte. That is our short-term focus. And then certainly long-term focus on both a bigger program in Nevada as well as in Chile.
Perfect. All right. So with that, we'll wrap up. So I'd like to thank Adrian from Angold Resources for taking the time to host the webinar today with Red Cloud Securities, and thank you to everybody on the line for tuning in with us today.
Thank you.